Reporters here at TMZ KU Edition like to keep followers on top of public issues, especially when they affect everyone on campus. PennDOT is slowly gearing up to meet federal Real ID standards within the next 2 years, and anyone looking to board a commercial flight or enter a federal building will have to have one. This special report aims to educate students as well as faculty and staff on the upcoming changes PennDOT will be making, the history behind Real ID, and give a glimpse on how the average viewer feels about Real ID.
Okay, so the other day I was driving back to campus and I sent you guys the photo of that billboard, and I was driving and I literally was like screaming, and I like illegally took my phone out and took that picture that I sent you guys, and like I feel like PennDOT is just attacking me ever since we started like doing this story. So Kate, like what did you learn about it?
Okay, so Real ID is basically after the September 11th attacks. Real ID was a federal law passed by Congress. It basically establishes like a minimum federal standard for state-issued driver licenses and ID cards. But Pennsylvania doesn't follow those rules, even though they recreated the new IDs that we have now. They still don't comply with what they need to. Mm-hmm. So basically, even if you have a new ID, you're still going to have to get a Real ID when you try to fly domestically, I believe, after October 1st, 2020, or if you want to access a government building. Basically, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to apply for it. If most of your information has been updated recently with PennDOT, you can pre-apply and they'll let you know if your information's still good with them and that you can get it whenever it comes out. That should be around March 2019. That's pretty much the gist of what it is.
Mm-hmm. So you said it had to do with 9/11. Alex, do you know what exactly happened that we have this situation going on?
Yeah, so the terrorists that carried out the plane attacks, they had a bunch of forms of ID. So mainly what this is a more secure way of identifying yourself, especially to the federal government. It includes airports, federal building, any of that. So the main difference between the two is in Pennsylvania, we get state issued license, whereas now they're federally issuing these licenses. So by 2020, like what Kate said, if you don't have this ID, you won't be able to fly domestically or even internationally. And
so Alexis, you did some research on like the numbers and how many states comply, how many states don't, and what sort of happens to them. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so Pennsylvania is one of like 16 states that are not compliant, and it's not that they're really not compliant, they just have an extension. So almost all states are either under extension or they already have complied with all the rules and stuff. Now, as far as like penalties go, there isn't really any penalties. I'm just assuming you probably won't be able to get in government places, or you probably just won't be able to fly. I do know, like, if you're like a family member of like a military official and you live on a military base, that if you go to certain stores to buy stuff, they won't let you purchase anything if you don't have your military ID, or like get back into your house on base without the military ID. So I don't know if like having a real ID would make up for this, not having like this government military ID instead of like replace of that, you know, since it's just a hassle if you forget it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Grace, you did some research on like the people and their feeling.
Yeah, I took to Twitter with 3 polls for my followers. First, I asked, have you heard of Real ID? And 68% of people said no. Next, I asked who had a Real ID for those followers who are out of state, and 56% said no. And then lastly, I asked how we feel about the program with either a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and 75% gave it a thumbs down. Were we shocked?
I think personally, like with what Alex said about why they're doing this because of like 9/11 and terrorists and stuff, that part makes sense, but it's also really frustrating. What do you guys think?
I agree.
yeah, I agree too. Like, I think people are just more upset about spending money than actually.
Yeah, because the fee is like 60 to get it for the first time, and then 30 something to renew it. So I think that's just like furthering the issue for like people who don't have a lot of money to have to spend money to fly when they didn't have to before. So I think that might be an issue.
And you had an interesting reply to one of these polls, didn't you?
Yeah, so I had this girl that follows me. She ended up actually responding to the question, like, have you heard of Real ID? And she said like the TV show. So I think that all the money that PennDOT is spending like on like sending these emails and sending out these letters trying to educate people on Real ID hasn't really been working much, since she thought it was a TV show rather than what it really is. So
It's just a restraint on a certain group of people, honestly.
yeah.
It's stupid.
So do we agree with the thumbs down?
Yeah.
For sure.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in today to TMZ KU Edition. If you have any opinions on the Real ID program, contact me at Grace Pedersen on Twitter.